See you then. Bye. Yeah, you look after yourself. You drive carefully. When you get home, do us a couple of rings on the phone so I know you're okay. Yeah. Probably won't see you again, or not for a long time. So, look after yourself. I'm going to get back in here and get a few more video shots. So I'll see you soon. Yeah, you look after yourself. Oh, that was sad. Very sad indeed. Oh, hello. Sorry about that. Just seeing an old acquaintance off just then. Just said goodbye. They're going away. I don't think I'll see them again. It was very sad. I got a little bit of a tear in my eye. Yeah, very sad. Who was it? Oh, that was music. That was. Yeah, music's just gone. It's gone. Retirement. Done enough. It's been around since human beings have been there. It's a lot of work. Eons. That's how long music's been doing stuff. And it's been difficult. Really difficult for music, doing what it's got to do, because it requires human beings and they have to think stuff up. For a start, they have to learn the instrument. So music's got to sit around for maybe 10 years until they've got enough skill to do it. And then once they've got enough skill, then they need compositions. And someone's got to come up with these compositions. And if it's a song, they've got to come up with lyrics. They've got to find something away about it. And then, human beings had to invent recording so that, we didn't just have the sort of written down classical stuff. Because music could see that was so much more, it was upgraded, once they got the classical down. I thought, what about all this folk that I've been churning out? Maybe we could get a bit of a wobble in the voice, maybe get a bit of improvisation. And it's been a big journey. And the 20th century, music has been flat out. It became the main guy on the scene. Romantic poetry, no work at all. Absolutely no work. Film came in, a new upstart came in called film, pretty good. But music, Be the Canny, it got in with the film straight off. Like that they were. It's very interesting, So, music's been so busy throughout the 20th century. And just chatting to music now, they said that, they're relieved in a way that AI's come along. They're relieved in the computer because now music can be created without them having to bother, really. Right? Because that was the big problem, is we all thought that music would be here forever. And I'll tell you why we all thought it. Because we thought that you're never going to have a world where people don't like to listen to music. It's too pleasurable. When you're a baby, right? When you're a baby and you're sat in your cot and something comes on the radio and you hear that beat and the baby starts to go. And then, oh boy, you're going to hit that, that's what I don't understand what they're saying, but it sounds cool. Everybody in the house say hi. I say who? I say why? I say on me the head down. That's music. It's great, isn't it? As soon as you do it makes you happy. I feel happy now just doing that. But I don't need to do it anymore, do I? We don't need Led Zeppelin anymore. We don't need all these bands. All that money spent. Think about it. All the recording studios, all those big studios with all the knobs. Full of knobs they were, the recording studios. Full of knobs. Right? And you had to know how to utilise those knobs. And they did. But it cost a lot of money. Right? And the musicians, they had to take lots of drugs to be inspired to make this stuff. Right? And then because it was such an incredible thing to do, that they would then go out around the world and they would be visiting from town to town. Like a travelling preacher. Preaching this thing that brought everybody together. You could walk into a room and sit down and then somebody would come out. And they would say, hello, Birmingham. We are warrior spirits. And this is our first song, which is called Driving Down the Highway to Nowhere. And everyone go, oh, yes. And everyone's jumping up down. I do feel sad. I'm nostalgic already for it. But nobody really wants to see a gig anymore. Do they really? Who wants to see a gig? I mean, the only gig you want to go see is when someone is 80 years old and was in a band that was like really important 50 years ago. And we will go knowing they're not as good as they used to be, but paying loads of money to sit there with our phones and film it so we can say in our life, we had the experience of being in the room, albeit a very big room, with a legend, right? We could run home and put that on our social media because that's really what it's about. This legend might be playing over backing tracks. There might be somebody on the stage singing their parts for them. Who knows? But it doesn't matter as long as you're in the room with them. But they're dying out, you see. They're dying out. And who's going to replace them? Who's going to come in and be able to do that? You watched Glastonbury last weekend and you could see that, they're trying to make legends out of many artists. Suddenly Dexys Midnight Runners and Cyndi Lauper's walking around. I'm thinking, is that the same as Elvis Presley? Is that the same as Robert Plant? Is that the same as Jimi Hendrix, Cyndi Lauper? Well, I suppose so, but she's 70. Right, so I think we could be facing a point in human history where the humans will be quite happy to listen to music created by AI. Now, as I say that, you are all shouting, it will never happen, Andy. It will never happen. I want to hear a human being playing with emotion. I want to hear, something new. Right, now let's take those two things. Firstly, the emotion. AI is not like a computer creating music out of numbers. It's not like a glorified sequencer, which is what we had before until AI comes along. What AI can do, it can go and listen to people who have played with feel, and it can repackage that feel. Now, it can't repackage a new idea of feel, right? A new idea of feel. Can't do that. Human beings, that was the main reason why we were doing music. It's about emotions. It's about feelings. It's about packaging up feelings, certain feelings that are relevant to that culture. But the question is does the new culture that we are moving into, the new society that we're going to be a part of, will that really value that? Do people really want to hear something new? Now, if they did want to hear something new, there is so much newness on the internet that people would be out there searching for newness. They would be going through Spotify, they would be going through Bandcamp and Instagram to find something that they never heard before. And when they heard something they never heard before, what would happen is the person that was the most novel, the musician that is the most unique, would be lifted to the top. But it's not happening, is it? Nobody wants new, do they? Let's be honest. They want expression, they want to feel something, right? But they're quite happy to feel that with music that's already there. When this great big experiment started off in the early 20th century of recording music and having a recorded music industry, right? They at first made tens and then hundreds and then thousands and hundreds of thousands and then millions of albums. And then they made trillions of albums and billions of albums. There's so many recordings out there. It goes on and on. I am surrounded in here by thousands of albums, physical albums. But at some point, all these albums went to live in an ethereal, imaginary world called the internet. And now they're all there. And when you go down the shop and get yourself your new smartphone, you click on it and you see that Spotify is installed in there or iTunes, you go, oh, I wonder what that is. And you press on it, and what that little thing at the end of your finger is access to virtually all the music that's ever been recorded. When I was buying records, there were records that were so hard to get hold of, we would search for years for them. But there were certain albums that you read about and you knew you would never ever come across a copy of that album. Not in a million years. For me, it was the Hell Sessions, Jimi Hendrix, John McLaughlin. I didn't even know whether they were actually real. I'd read about them and someone had said they'd been recorded. And back then, there was probably 4 or 5 people who had a copy of this somewhere, right? But there was no internet for them to shout about it. So nobody really knew. We're now a click away. Now you can go and choose the one that sounds the best. Now you can hear it in all sorts of contexts with different artwork and all sorts of things. Right, everything is there. So when this started, it wasn't there. As music has progressed through, the artists that were signed in the 1920s and 1930s were quite a small amount of artists. People would just automatically listen to what was there. And as music carried on, right, to get a foothold, you had to do something new. Now, I'll explain why that is. It's quite apparent to me that we love music when we're a kid. And for some reason, when we get to our teenage years, we identify music. And music has a role at that point where it becomes emblematic of who we are and what we want to be. Rock and roll was unique in that in the 1950s, a whole bunch of teenagers in the sort of Western Hemisphere decided to identify with music that had its roots in black rhythm and blues and country music and a few other things. It was rebellious. They felt that they could have a different future from what went before by sitting around driving in their car, listening to Chuck Berry. Okay, this is very important. And that carried on. So once you hear that music, once you make that decision from about the age of, say, 11 to 18, 19, you are taking in all this new music that's there. Now, there's all the old music, and you might even take in the old music. You might think, like I did, I don't want to listen to Culture Club and ABC and Haircut 100. That's not me. I went searching around and I found, what I wanted in Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and then Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And yes, that's what I found. I was at odds. I went back. I used to walk into school in the 1980s wearing huge flared trousers that I'd drawn stars on because Ronnie James Dio had a pair of trousers like that on Rainbow Rising. I was an anachronism, all right? I grew my hair long. I looked like a hippie when everyone else wanted to look like George Michael or Princess Diana, which I think is the same thing. So this is something that I've become very aware of. But the time you get to 18, 19, those choices you have made, they then stay with you because you are now that person. You go through life. If you find someone who's 50 now, who grew up in that era of the sort of UK dance rave scene, these 50-year-olds are going home. And unlike my parents who would sit down and put maybe a Jim Reeves or a Val Doonican album, my parents didn't do that. They were into jazz, but that's what everyone else did. These will sit down and put on Orbital or Left Field, right? And when you go to these raves now, it's a whole bunch of very old people pushing the envelope, but, dropping a few E's and jumping around. It keeps them healthy though, doesn't it? In a way, and in the end, they're close to death. So if the drugs do anything to their mental health, does it really matter? At least they'll be happy in their own little world. That's the oblivion to which we resign ourselves. We don't want to know about anything new. I don't want to know about anything new. But kids want to know about new stuff, don't they? They want to know about new stuff. But we are moving to an era where AI will be creating music. And I can envisage, and this is already happening, that you will set up your account, right? You will set up your account and you will then work with AI and you will create exactly what you want to listen to. Experiment. And then once you've got that, you'll be able to store that as part of your profile. And your individuality, the newness, will be in the fact that when somebody visits your profile, the music they are hearing are a direct expression of that person, created by them, chosen by them, and unique. Right? Now, that is so novel and it is so new, it might just trump the want to know that there was some sort of human authorship of this. Right? And this was undone philosophically by the postmodernists. Right? So the postmodernists that emerged, I can't stick them. I like the postmodern. My channel's postmodern. My channel's postmodern. I use postmodern ideas all the time in this channel. Okay? I understand that. I think that there is a lot of worth in postmodernist criticism of art. And the thing I'm about to describe now, there is a utility to it. It's important. The idea that comes from postmodernism is this idea of the author. In the modernist period, we were supposed to appreciate art because we were aware that the art had come from the mind of a human being. And in the modernist world, you have complete control. You are an author, or as the French say, an auteur, right? Auteur, right? And that is someone who's in control of everything that's going on. So that art becomes an expression of themselves. Francois Truffaut in the early 70s made a film called Day for Night. Day for night is a technique that filmmakers use to pretend it's nighttime. You film in the daytime and you drop the exposure down so it looks like nighttime. That's called Day for Night. And in this film, Truffaut plays himself as a director. And as it goes through, he makes the argument that every aspect of this film, he was under his control. He made the decisions. It's an argument that the films are not made by committee, but they are the artistic vision of the director. Now, of course, they're not. Films are primarily the writer, and then the producer, and then the director's going to direct the actors, but the actors are going to bring their creativity to it. The editor's going to have a control of it. The composer's going to come on, put music in. That's going to completely change the aspect. So, in a way, when you look at a film, that's been made by loads of people, and it's all patched together. And what the postmodernists said is isn't that how all art is? If I pick up a guitar now and start to play, I'm playing what people have done before. The novel thing is the fact that I have bodged it together in a way that is mine. But there's no originality there. Everything is culturally constructed. And what the postmodernists said is that if you look at a piece of art, rather than looking at it as being the mind and expression of a genius, just look at what the references are, and you'll be able to deconstruct that and pull it apart and go, oh yeah, this person's that, and it's that, and it's that, and it's that. And you will see that there are meta-narratives that exist. And these meta-narratives are hidden within the art. The artists, and it's all just, dead white males. That's the meta-narrative we've got, because and you get all that thing going on, right? Now, I think that is mistaken. I believe that music can be seen as being the view of the artist, the author. It can be seen as their aesthetic expression. But it can also be seen as a revelation of ourselves within the universe, right? That's the real dichotomy that's going on. And so when the postmodernists say that we live in a culturally constructed world and the artist is just showing different aspects of culture, right? And they're just, patchworking that together and it's just the same old words in a different order. That is based upon the wrong assumption, I believe, that everything is culturally constructed, and I don't think it is. I think when we look at, where things come from, and what they are based upon, throughout history, there's been this esoteric idea that everything is based upon the law of three. I have a band called the Law of Three, and it's named after the law of three. Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, for example. That would be an example of the three. Earth, Wind, and Fire. That was a joke, by the way. But Earth, Wind, and Fire does not, that band does not It's not a reference to the elements. You know that. That's a fact. Can't remember what it is, but I bet you earth, wind and fire is to do with, I think it's some astrological thing. And anyway, whatever it is, it's this idea, this is an esoteric idea that things can be seen as a sort of dialectic where you have the one thing and then the opposite thing and then the thing as a whole, right? And human beings tend to see the world in dichotomies. They seem to world in oppositions, in yin and yangs. But the way that those things come together, I call the sublime. That's what art tries to reveal, and that's the whole. Okay, and that is a mysterious thing. Okay, if we were to see ourselves as being at the centre of the universe and the universe is contained within us, then we see our art as an expression, and we are completely in control of our expression of the world because we are in completely control of our world. Right, that's the idea of human being at the centre of the universe. Or you could see yourself as a speck of the universe is out there, and you are just like a speck of dust floating. And if you just open yourselves up, and those two things, those two ways of seeing the world, can be brought together with the sublime, and the sublime and you realise you are both of those things. You are at both ends of the telescope all at once. This is a mystical thing. It is not something that I would state materially is correct, but I believe that's the case. And I think the postmodernists, who come out of a tradition of the rejection of spiritual ideals, was trying to create a bedrock from which they could draw their morals and their aesthetics, and that became culture. And so they saw culture as entirely the source of absolutely everything, and it's not, right? From my thoughts and observations, I think we could see that when we are looking at things in the world, those things are there and they exist and they are apparent because of three forces that are work together. One of them is culture, and culture can be seen as the sort of society that you grow up in as a whole, or the society of a certain identity group that you are in. You know, so white people would have a culture, black people would have a culture, drummers have a culture, British people have a culture. There's all these identity groups. There's all these different cultures and stuff. Well, but yeah, but aren't you just describing everything there? Yeah, it's totally faulty. Anyway, but that is not the only thing. So let's use the example as me as a drummer, right? The postmodernists would say that I am a drummer because culturally I live in a society where at some point playing the drums was rewarded. I grew up at a time when there were like these rock bands around, and I looked up to them and I thought, I want to be in a rock band like that. And I knew that there was a very sort of male, patriarchal, world out there that I could aim for, and if I got into it, I would then become the guy on the stage, pushing out, because it's always about power struggles and all these things, power dynamics with the postmodernists, so I can go out there rampaging across the various continents, having sex with as many people as I possibly can, a little bit like a musical Attila the Hun. All toxic masculinity. This is where all these ideas come from, because the idea that I became a drummer must be entirely cultural. But there's two other things that have dictated this. One is biology, who we are as human beings, as animals, what we have evolved to be, how we operate. There's certain aspects to us all which are biological. Right? When you look at rhythm and drumming, there are biological aspects by far. That's very important. A baby, as I said, who has no aware of the culture they're in, will still respond to rhythm. It's something that's in there. But by far the most important thing on the reason why I'm a drummer, and the reason why things come to be, is our individual history. The individual things that have happened to us. Our own experiences. The things that make you who you are. Okay? Me and my brother grew up in the same house. My dad had played a little bit of drums when he was young, and he had a set of drumsticks in the house, right? He hadn't got a drum kit, but he got some drumsticks, and I found these drumsticks. My dad used to play lots of jazz. I, from a young age, was fascinated by Buddy Rich and Joe Morello and the drummers on there. I thought it was incredible. When I was a little kid and I went to school and they used to get all the instruments out, you know, like the little recorders, you know, and then you'd have a tambourine, and they'd get this little snare drum out, and I used to think, that should be mine. Now that I believe is biological, and I don't know where it comes from, but I had a predisposition to the drums that my brother, who grew up in exactly the same house, didn't. All right. But my personal experience of growing up in that house, and there being a set of drumsticks there, and there being music played every single day, and my dad, who knew a little bit about drumming, pointing out Buddy Rich on the TV or pointing out Ginger Baker and telling me about what was going on, and me listening to jazz and understanding the improvisation and understanding the idea of groove. And I would go and get these sticks and I would go, Dad, can you show me something? And my dad would show me, he goes, this is a paradiddle. Which he showed me wrong, but I did learn it, you know, and I learned this paradiddle, and I said, how do you, and he showed me a jazz swing, and he showed me a rock beat. I didn't have a drum kit, I was just playing it. My biology was so motivated, Gurdjieff calls this a magnetic center. It was so motivated to do this that I basically spent 2 years learning the drums on cushions and the settee and various different things I could hit. Eventually, when I wrecked the settee and all the stuff had come off it, my parents realised I was just going to wreck the house. My dad went out and bought a drum kit, and they were expensive back then. It's not like now. The instruments were very, very expensive. My dad had to save up for me, and it was probably like, you know, half a month's earnings for him to go out and buy me a second-hand drum kit, which when I got, it was just a magical thing for me. And the day I sat down to play that drum kit, because I'd envisaged it in my head so much, I could play it. Now, for me, the fact that I play drums, the music I like, what I do, what I aesthetically do, my creativity, all the stuff I talk about on this YouTube channel, culture has very little to do with it. But, and I hope I have really explained that now, because this is something. If you look at yourself and you're honest, you will see that everything that you are, and if you're a creative person, everything that you say and all the things you want to express are not rooted in that much in culture. They're rooted in you, your unique experience. And one of the things that's fantastic, I think, about Western culture, because I am not a cultural relativist, I think that cultures, some are good and some are not so good. And I think that's very important, because that's how human beings work to a better place to live, right? And there's obviously, we all know that there are cultures we want to live in. And most people who live here in the UK or America, if they're really honest with themselves, even though they might bash it, they choose to live there. None of them are up and going, I'm going to go and live in North Korea, because they've got this incredible different culture there. It's called communism, and it's fantastic. And everything's spread out, you know, and you don't have to think, you know, there's this idea of being free and just being able to do what you want. You don't have to worry about that, because they don't have freedom there. Right, nobody talks like that. That was like Some Like It Hot, wasn't it? Nobody talks like that. I even said it like Cary Grant. Authenticity, you see. Cary Grant's voice was a fake. It was not real. He had created a character. He was from a poor family from Bristol. But I digress. So, where were we? I don't think the world operates like the postmodernists think. But postmodernism has influenced culture so much that it got its fingers into rock and roll. Bands like Led Zeppelin and all those 60s bands could be almost seen as the summation of modernism, but they've got postmodernist aspects. But then when we get bands like Kraftwerk and then the punks and then the new wavers throughout the 80s, that can be seen as an expression of postmodernism. This is why I often say Kraftwerk are so important, because Kraftwerk are coming out of a sort of European art tradition, which is much closer to the philosophies that drove this than we were here in the UK or America. So this idea of mass production and people just not existing and their individuality not being important is a far more European view than it is a sort of British or American view here in the UK. And I think this has impinged on the West, is that we have, or used to have, a moral adherence to the sanctity of the individual. And what I mean by that is that we are going to tolerate what everybody does here in the West, as long as it doesn't get in the way of somebody else wanting to have their freedoms. And that is a thing that is being held. And the reason I push back against, identity politics, the reason I push back is because the identity politics, which has its roots in a whole bunch of philosophies, which I'm talking about now, will inform art. And art could easily turn around and become something where we go, you don't need to express individuality, because that's what we mean by something new, right? There is no new. Okay, there is no new. What there is an expression of yourself, an honest expression of yourself. The great artists who have record deals, right, are themselves. Madonna is Madonna, Prince is Prince, Sly Stone is Sly Stone, James Brown is James Brown. We know that. They exude their themselves-ness. Now that might be a construction. Someone like David Bowie continually changed his construction. Cary Grant was a construction. He was the idea of the suave English gentleman. But he wasn't that. And that's okay too. Because those characters that we put on, those masks that we put on, are based on us. They could be based upon a sort of archetypal ideal that we have of ourselves. As the saviour or as the dark shadow. And so that sanctity of individuality and the expression of that in art was really valued in the era of rock and roll. And the bands that we really see as being the heavyweights, the Jimi Hendrixes and the Beatles, those bands of that era in that late 60s where, pop music seemed to traverse to being like the most creative art form on the planet. What we have there is an adherence to self-expression. The great moment for me in the whole story of rock and roll is when Jimi Hendrix got up at Monterey and set his guitar on fire. And then when Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock played the Star Spangled Banner. And the journey of those, 3 years between that, 2 years really, is the journey of the sort of mountain peak of the whole rock and roll era, which is that, late 20th century cultural form, which is now dead. And we discuss it on this channel with a lot of nostalgia, But today on this video, as you can see, I waved it goodbye and I think it's gone. I think that has gone. And the cultural need to have Jimi Hendrix on stage playing the Star Spangled Banner in that way, to take the structure of Western civilization and impinge on his own individuality and his own expression that went beyond the blues. It went beyond his identity as a black man or his identity as a hippie. It was something else. And the reason why that is now in our culture, the reason why it's embedded in our culture, even though what Hendrix did when he did the Star Spangled Banner was perhaps one of the most avant-garde things. It should be in the realm of free jazz or modern classical music, but it reached people because he did it in front of 500,000 people at Woodstock. And Woodstock was that point where we thought we'd reached the Aquarian age, when all the systems that the Star Spangled Banner represented came apart and everybody held hands. They all took their clothes off and they jumped in the water and everybody was happy. It was like the Garden of Eden. We'd finally found it, as Joni Mitchell, who was never at that place, so rightly described. And so this is what was important in the 1960s. But that postmodernist ideal was embedded within this. Okay, and it starts to emerge in the 70s. And the idea of the individual, what is the individual? They're just a construction. They're just bolting. You could just have faceless people that look mannequins playing machines, singing about the mundane. That could be art as well. And Kraftwerk did that, and it was art because people loved it, and it changed the world. It changed the world. And these ideas that come from postmodernism is precisely what AI does. A piece of music's just It's just it's just a construction out of cultural things. So you can say, I want a bit of punk rock and I want a bit of jazz rock. And can you do it with a bit of sort of Jewish music? And it will go there and say, well, I'll take a lump of that and a lump of that and I'll stick them together. There you are, there we go. Creativity done. Yeah, it does sound creative. Yeah, it does sound like it sounds novel, it sounds new. It's not really the expression of an individuality. I can't hear anything unique. I can't hear like that the person who's made this had this thing going on or that thing going on. It sort of sounds like I would expect it to sound, right? The question is, if young people coming up, it doesn't matter about us, but those young people, if they embrace AI, then it's over. As what we know as music's over. And something else I think has taken its place. Music will change at that point, proper performed music. Because I think what I love about music is the fact it is created, it's performed. That's what I like about it. That was something that I got when my dad would play his jazz records, or we'd sit and watch Oscar Peterson on the TV. There's a magic. When I was very, very young, I think about 5, at my school, I think it was a clarinet quartet came in to assembly and played. And these kids must have only been about 10, but they seemed grown up to me. And they walked in, they started to play the clarinet, and I can remember where I was sat. I can remember where the sunshine was. That moment imprinted on me at that point. Suddenly the world became alive. I was, as Gurdjieff said, self-remembering. I was fully conscious at that point. I was aware of every click and pop. I was aware of the sound in the room around me. And it was incredible. It was so pleasant. The woodiness of the clarinets was so pleasant. And the fact that this moment was there now and at some point in the future would be gone. It was an instant that touches you and cradles you from the rest of your life. The opposite of a trauma, in a way. Something that you recurse to, a place of happiness, of solace. And of course, we've all had our traumas and we try and get through them. And for me, there's been traumas and I've tried to get through them. And my recourse always has been music. Always. And if I pick up a guitar or a drum sticks and start playing, at that moment, I'm in that same place, which I call the eternal now. And in there, stuff happens. And a long time ago, I realised that me judging what I was doing in that place was pointless. I needed to surrender to that moment. So surrender to what is going on and realise that I'm only playing a part in that moment. That everything around me, it's not just cultural, everything around me is playing that part. That is a moment that I am within. And the actual boundary between me and that moment, which I imagine's there, is not really there. It's a thing that is revealed often when people have mystical experiences, isn't it? That is what for me is embodied in music. And although I could listen to AI and it's pleasant, and I've messed around with it, and there's a couple of tracks that I really enjoy, perhaps there is a difference between enjoying music and the act of listening to music or making music. Yes. I can't quite get my head around this one. I've often been troubled by the idea that what is it about music that makes it different to a roller coaster ride or a chocolate bar? Music's great, gives you pleasure. Like having your back rubbed. You know, And I feel, no, that's not what music is. The enjoyment aspect of it is not the important bit. It's pleasant and it's pleasurable. But music's more than that. If you go to a football match and everyone's singing those funny songs that they sing, you know, to bring themselves together, you know, are people enjoying that? They're not enjoying that in the same way they're enjoying when they're dancing to, you know, in a club. So music seems to be having all these different aspects, and perhaps all these aspects are just like symptoms. They're just evidence that the music was there. But it's not actually music. Music's ethereal. It's something that comes and visits us. And it visited me as a listener when I was 5 years old in that school. I may have enjoyed other pieces of music more, but that moment provided a place of solace. And drew me towards music in a way. And maybe God, I have been stressed up recently. There's been events happening, and doing the YouTube channel, it's very apparent that I can't get my breath. Traumatic events from my youth have been prodded and poked at by the more recent events. I've held on. But here, talking about what I wanted to talk about, which is like the idea that music's going to die and it's not going to be here. And there's no way I would ever believe that in a million years. That's the conceit of this video. I knew it all along, how ridiculous it is to wave off music at your door and go and sit down and think, well, that's music gone. Because music can't do that. It can't go, can it? It can't go. And it doesn't matter if people listen to AI. It doesn't matter whether kids like AI, does it? It doesn't matter. Because that's not music. Listening to it's not music. Making it's not music. There's nothing that we do which is actually music. It's just like the footprint of music. It's the fact that we were visited by something, perhaps. Most music is just us searching for music, but we don't find it, do we? Because music's elusive. And we have to meet music. And we have to meet music by not meeting music. Like I was when I was 5 years old. Unready. Sat there thinking it's just another day in assembly. We've sung a couple of hymns. That wasn't music. But then something happened. And my consciousness changed. My consciousness went up to a higher level for a moment. A moment which I have called on this channel the sublime. But I never say what that is, but it's to do with a connectedness which raises us to a higher consciousness. And there is peace there. Because the two things that are at war with that in ourselves, our desires, which are at war with our sort of morality, the perennial angel and devil on the shoulders, they're shut up at that moment because they're astonished. They're astonished by the beauty of the world. That the world is beautiful. And music is a way in which we can instantly reach out into the world. It's all encompassing. That's why it's not like a story or it's not like a painting. There's something else and they're fantastic. But it's not like music. Because music is a human being reaching out into the world and creating something that's all encompassing. And that can be really annoying. And so we have to shut down what's out there, or it would just take us over. And that's the problem with the music industry. When you're 13, you're open. You're open to those experiences. Now, music could well visit a young person through AI. But we know that will be the convoluted action of music, because all the AI is just like a remix of what human beings have already done. And I knew that when I started the video, and I knew that was the underlying idea I wanted to get to. But now I'm here. I've just cast that off. Just cast that off. Because that's not the real truth. The real truth is music is elusive. Right? And when somebody makes computer music, they go off into this world, exactly like when they play an instrument. And that's embodied in the music. There's a novelty in that. There's newness in that. I'm searching for newness all the time. Why? Why am I? Why do I need to do that for? I'm not interested in new stuff. Everything I listen to is old music. I'd be much happier to listen to a record that I've been listening to for the last 40 years than trying to listen to something new. You know, I've worked with this music. I've created a relationship with this music over years and years. It's so strong that I could come on this channel and just talk about it, and it seems to fire people up. I'm 56 years old. I am the summation of what I am. That is what music is for me. But I still know it's a powerful thing. A few minutes ago, and I hope I caught it on video, you might be able to see it in my face. I don't know, because it's gone. Whatever appeared then inside me, and it didn't quite arrive, I think because I'm on camera. But something came along when I discussed that. I felt that music came along at that point. And for me, it's in that moment at school with the clarinets. It was the realization of the power of music to create a safe place. It's not about enjoyment, is it? It's not about, I like that beat, that's a nice tune, or that sounds like a band I like, so I like that. What it is, we work at this thing, and it's there all the time, and it gives us all sorts of different enjoyments. It's there, we're working with it, it's like a great thing. But every now and then, it turns around and puts its arms around you. And the hug you get is so strong and powerful. What is it? It's the universe hugging you. Music is the universe hugging you. It's a nice thought, isn't it? That we are loved. We're loved by the people around us. But fundamentally, that love that they have for us is really the love that the universe has for us, which is why the universe has placed us here to appreciate and love back. And whether you're an atheist or an agnostic or a believer, I think everybody knows that deep down. Everybody experienced that moment when they are at peace or at one. And music gets you there so sometimes. We're all searching, aren't we? We're all searching for that place, that safe place. I'm at the end of the video, aren't I? I am at the end of my video. I'll tell you something that's weird. Is I normally face this way over here, and you have the records there. That's the normally the way. But when I face this way, right, I have a view out into my garden, and I can see trees and flowers. I can see, butterflies and wasps and bees and all sorts of things flying around. I can see my house. I can see my dog walking in and out. I can see flowers. And so often, when I sit this way, I have an experience when I do this, that I have more, it's something that I can't try and do. It's the same as music. It's the same thing, right? But I've realised something in this video, and now it's past, I can't get hold of it anymore. You saw it. Is it there on the film? Can you go back? Is it not about what I'm saying, but more about did my face change at all? I don't know. The best YouTube videos are the ones where I get myself to a point where I don't know. I find those are the best ones. I'm absolutely confused. What were we talking about? Nah, music's not going to die. It's not going to go and leave us. But music's not like that. It's not like that. It won't go. Don't worry about it. It won't go. It'll find a way. Trust in the universe. We're made out of bloody vibrations anyway. And that's all music is. We are a machine that is made out of vibrations, that has things in that responds to vibrations. Our eyes and our ears and all that type of thing. And that responds to vibrations. And it sets up more vibrations inside us. And those vibrations ended with expression. An expression of what the universe is. And the only entity that experiences that expression is you. It's you. You own it. You own the whole lot of it, don't you? Think about it. If you put a piece of music on and you enjoy it and you love it and you're nodding, it's giving you... And if it's so good that it actually makes you conscious, if it makes you wake up for an instant and actually look around and see how beautiful it actually all is, right? That's you. That is you. I'm not saying it's you that's done it. I'm saying that is you. Think about it. There is nothing else but that. We're not going to be able to work out what it is. We don't need to. We just need to try and find our way to that place. And what is that place? Nobody knows anything. Oh. Nobody knows anything, do they? Wisdom is letting go of wanting to know. I'm done. Hour long, bloody hell, Philosophy Sunday video. There we go. Bit of music for you. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I have created a very strange place where on a Sunday I come out here and I talked for an hour And I try and get myself to a point where I don't know what the hell I'm going on about, and that's all there is. And the fact that people come and watch them in their thousands is strange. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know why it's me. I don't know what the hell's going on. Sometimes I think, because I've been an atheist most of my life, it's the importance of confession, isn't it? In the old days, I would have been sat in some box, you know, going, and when I was young, there was, I remember the clarinets played and felt a certain way, but then I got in band and we went out on tour, and it was like we were all acting in a way we shouldn't have acted. You know, all that sort of stuff that people do on a Sunday. And I think there's something, I don't know, there's something odd. I don't know. And there is the moral of the story. I don't know. If you like the fact that I don't know, put a like on it. If you want to see more points where I basically don't know, then you can do that by pressing subscribe. Right, if you want to come and join up with a whole bunch of people who don't know anything, then you come over and join my Patreon. But if you want to support me financially in not knowing anything, then you can do that by putting some money in the PayPal tip jar. I am at the end of the video. It's a beautiful sunny day, right? And I am going to finish up with showing you. Oh, I'll unplug my phone. I'll just turn it around. And then, oh, that's what I've been looking at. That's my lovely view. It's got a bit cloudy now. But look at all the green. There's a lot of green in my garden. I haven't been doing much gardening over the last 2 years. But I'm starting to get my head around it now. See you on the next video.
This is it. Open your eyes. All you can see. Give yourself time. Put yourself into my arms. All you can be. Me, you know. This is it. Open your eyes. All you can see. Give yourself time. Put yourself into my arms. All you can be, make it your home.
Innocence departed,